What's going on, guys? Today's TV show review will be the 1999 Fox show, and that is Family Guy. One of the funniest Fox shows that I watched in my life, all about the funniest family of the show. Family Guy was originally and currently airing on Fox, Freeform, FX, FXX, Adult Swim, and adult programming block on Cartoon Network, Comedy Central. Originally aired on TBS, originally streamed on Netflix, and currently streaming on Amazon Prime Video, and Hulu, and Disney+. The show's set in the fictional town of Quahog, Rhode Island. The show centers around the adventures and activities of the dysfunctional Griffin family, consisting of Father Peter Griffin, a bumbling and clumsy yet well-intentioned blue-collar worker, Lois, a stay-at-home mother who is a member of the affluent Pewterschmidt family, Meg, their often bullied teenage daughter who is constantly ridiculed or ignored by the family, Chris, their awkward teenage son, who is overweight, unintelligent, unathletic and, in many respects, simply a younger version of his father, and Stewie, their diabolical infant son of ambiguous sexual orientation who is an adult-mannered evil genius and uses stereotypical Archvillain phrases. Living with the family is their witty, smoking, martini-swilling, sarcastic, English-speaking anthropomorphic dog Brian, although he is still considered a pet in many ways. During their misadventures, they often get their friends, other family members, and various townspeople involved, which often ends in some wacky results. The writing in its golden era was very solid, as even though it wasn't the most complex or intriguing, it did have enough interesting stories and ideas to keep viewers watching, as well as having a pretty crude but solid sense of humor. And even though it was mostly pretty lighthearted in the early years, it did make room for some solid heart. And it also has some pretty awesome and intense action depending on the episode. However, once season 7 started, that's when it started to go downhill and become far more mean-spirited and unpleasant, have tons of continuity errors, and the humor started to get far more offensive and cruel to the point that it makes viewers uncomfortable, grossed out, angered, or all three. And it's sadly been on this road ever since, despite having some occasional good episodes. The show does have a good amount of solid and well-crafted episodes that are worth checking out, like Death Has a Shadow, A Hero Sits Next Door, Brian Portrait of a Dog, Peter, Caviar Eater, D.A. Boom, I Am Peter, Hear Me Roar, Road to Rhode Island, Let's Go to the Hop, Wasted Talent, The Thin White Line, Brian Does Hollywood, Death Lives, Mission Impossible, A Very Special Family Guy Freakin' Christmas, Brian Wallows and Peter Swallows, Road to Europe, North by North Quahog, Brian the Bachelor, Breaking Out Is Hard to Do, Peter's Got Woods, PTV, Brian Sings and Swings, Pete Erotica, I Take the Quagmire, Sibling Rivalry, You May Now Kiss the, Guy Who Receives, Pete Turgist, Stewie Be Good, Bongo Was His Name, Oh, Stu and Stewie's Excellent Adventure, Road to Rupert, Peter's Two Dads, Blue Harvest, It's a Trap, Stewie Kills Lois, Lois Kills Stewie, Back to the Woods, I Dream of Jesus, Road to Germany, Baby Not on Board, Fox Y Lady, Three Kings, Road to the Multiverse, Brian and Stewie, Something, Dark Side, and then there were fewer, Excellence in Broadcasting, Halloween on Spooner Street, Road to the North Pole, The Big Bang Theory, It's a Trap, Back to the Pilot, Mr. and Mrs. Stewie, Yugla Math, Joe's Revenge, Road to Vegas, Inside Family Guy, V is for Mystery, 3 Directors, Dog Bites Bear, Big Trouble in Little Quahog, and Pete Terminator. But given how the series did take a massive nosedive, it sadly results in not only bad, but some downright horrendous episodes like Play It Again, Brian, Love, Blackshally, The Man with Two Brians, Family Gay, Not All Dogs Go to Heaven, Brian's Got a Brand New Bag, Petersmith, Brian Griffin's House of Pain, April and Quahog, Quagmire's Dad, Partial Terms of Endearment, Brian Writes a Bestseller, The Hand That Rocks the Wheelchair, Foreign Affairs, Seahorse Seashell Party, Screams of Silence, Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, Turban Cowboy, Vestigial Peter, Life of Brian, Brian's a Bad Father, Fresh Air, Herpy the Love Sore, He's Black, The Simpsons Guy, The 2000-Year-Old Virgin, Brian the Closer, A Shot in the Dark, House Full of Peters, Girl Interneted, The Unkindest Cut, The D in Apartment 23, Conaris, Married with Cancer, Dead Dog Walking, Better Off Meg, and Trump Guy. The show did have a pretty solid sense of humor that did lead to some pretty funny and humorous moments, like some of the witty banter and dialogue between the characters, some of the more insane situations they get into, some of the gags and violent slapstick, and some of the adult jokes and dark humor. And while the cutaways can detract from the story, they could still get a good laugh because most of them were funny. Also, while some of the humor did rely on stereotypes, it was at least in a mostly harmless way that could still get a laugh. But once the writing started going downhill and became more cruel, it sadly affected the humor as it started getting more graphic and disgusting, with stuff like tasteless suicide jokes, cruel abuse, extreme gross out, and the stereotype jokes got way more offensive to the point that they're no longer funny. The show also did have a good amount of heart to it that did result in some genuinely tender moments, like some of the life lessons presented in certain episodes, some of the more somber and tragic events that the characters go through, and certain moments when certain characters would end up bonding. But again, once the show started getting more mean and cruel, most of the moments that are supposed to be heartfelt are pointless because they're almost immediately thrown out the window because of someone doing a very jerky and cruel thing. The animation is the one thing of the show that actually does improve as the series progresses, and while it does look very simple, it does have a decent look to it. The characters all have pretty decent designs and some decently fluid movements. The backgrounds did start off pretty plain, but as the show progressed they did start to look more impressive and have some nice details, and there are some pretty solid effects. However, it can also be pretty repulsive whenever there's a visually disturbing or disgusting joke. The characters used to all mostly be pretty funny and likable with some good chemistry and dynamics, but they started to become more mean and cruel as of late. The Griffins used to be pretty solid and likable protagonists that did have some nice dynamics and did have their heartfelt and funny moments, like Peter being a likable dumbass, Lois being a kind voice of reason, Chris being awkward but well-meaning, Meg being a sympathetic outcast, Brian being cynical but also the most level-headed of the family, and Stewie being a lovable evil genius who would put his evilness aside and become more friendly and easygoing as the series progresses, and is actually still one of the few characters that's still likable even after the severe decline in quality. But after the series went massively downhill, the Griffins started to become despicably unlikable, such as Peter becoming a heartless jerk, Lois becoming a stuck-up and cruel bitch, Chris becoming way too stupid for his own good, Meg becoming a very disturbed and abused punching bag, and Brian becoming a self-centered asshole who pushes his beliefs onto others. The supporting characters are also in the same boat, as they did have their funny and likable moments, but some of them got worse after the dip, such as the womanizing and sex-crazed Quagmire, the wheelchair-bound Joe and his wife Bonnie, the laid-back Cleveland, the neurotic Mort and his son Neil, the stuck-up Carter, the vengeful giant chicken, the horrific but helpful Death, the kooky Mayor West, and some of the more minor characters like Consuela, Bruce, Carl, Bertram, Angela, Jerome, James Woods, and even Jesus Christ himself. However, these characters also have their horrible and unlikable moments, like Bonnie cheating on Joe and even secretly plotting to kill him, portraying Jesus as a sex-crazed person in one episode, Angela sexually harassing Peter, and everyone else just becoming more generic and bland. The voice acting is pretty solid and does result in some good performances, like Seth MacFarlane as Peter, Stewie, Brian, and Quagmire, Alex Borstein as Lois, Seth Green as Chris, Mila Kunis as Meg, Mike Henry and Arif Zahar as Cleveland, Patrick Warburton as Joe, Jennifer Tilly as Bonnie, Wallace Shawn as Bertram, Adam West as Mayor West, James Woods as himself, H. John Benjamin as Carl, and many more. The music and songs of this series are very well done, as the score does capture the show's comedic and light-hearted tone while also sounding more dark and somber at times. And there are some pretty solid and well-written songs like This House Is Freakin' Sweet, Road to Rhode Island, Gotta Give Up the Toad, You've Got a Lot to See, You and I Are So Awfully Different, The Freakin' FCC, When We Swing, All I Really Want for Christmas, and more. Overall, while this show did take a pretty bad nosedive in recent years, the first several seasons are still pretty solid and well crafted, and even the worst seasons have at least one good episode. So I do recommend it, even if it's just those first several seasons and select episodes from the more recent ones. Speaking about its movie, this show even has a direct-to-video movie from 20th Century Fox Home Entertainment and Fuzzy Entertainment, Stewie Griffin, The Untold Story in 2005. It's also announced that this show is getting its own theatrical movie from 20th Century Studios. Let's hope it would be done. And so, the final verdict of this longest-running Fox show, I'm giving this show a 7.9 out of 10. Pretty great show from Fox, and this show goes to this day like The Simpsons and American Dad. Well everyone, that's it for this episode of my TV show review series. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to click the bell for notifications. Until next time, have a good day.
It seems today that all you see is violence in movies and sex on TV.
But where are those good old-fashioned values on which we used to rely? Lucky is family life. Lucky is a man who positively can do all the things to make us laugh and cry. He's a family Seems today that all you see is violence in movies and sex on TV. But where are those good old-fashioned values on which we used to rely? Lucky there's a Family Guy. Lucky there's a Family Guy. He's a Family Guy.
In the house. You know.